Okay, so hey, I'm base. Continue on the Gemara. So we betani givasa the Rebbe Yochanan. Maybe get me minas hayam and nosna law, but lo amar law b'fnei nechta b'fnei nechtam. So you didn't say it. So what's the din? Yoitze v'havalad mamzer divri Rebbe Meir. So again, Pasha says we don't post like Rebbe Meir. We're going to see Rebbe Meir's reason here, and Rebbe Meir is a bit of an issue because this is a din the Rabbanon. But anyway, that's Yoitze v'halad mamzer. But Chachamim ein halad mamzer. He's not a mamzer. So Kate said Yatza. So how do we deal with this? How do we so Toisus has kind of two sheetas here. Perish Kate said Yatza le Rabbanon. Shetina said lechatchila. Because the Rabbanon don't have a problem. So therefore, what do they need to fix? So this is for sure you need to all the Rabbanon said is that it's not a mamzer. Ein havlad mamzer. I mean, it's not a great what are you damning with faint praise. If you say, well, I have this girl for you, and now is she any good? It says, well, she's not a mamzer. I mean, that's not like Tina. That's not Tina say lechatchila. Let's say. So Tyson says, so how do we do it so that she can be married lechatchila? Or im nises shelo teitze. If she got married, if she does get married, b'di'eved, you don't have to leave the marriage. Aval levlad ein tzarich tekana, but the vlad doesn't need a tekana at all. The below tekana lo havi mamzer. Delis lehu kol hamishana. So kol hamishana is the din of Rebbe Meir that whoever changes the matbeya, which we'll see. The Rebbe Meir, now this is going back. Ketzad yaseh le Rebbe Meir. Ketzad yaseh koidim nesuyin before they get married. Aval acher nesuyin mistaved le Rebbe Meir ein tekana. But according to Rebbe Meir, there's nothing you can do once you got married already. The Kevin de Vlad Mamzer, Imkain Kol Dracha Me'eluba. This is I think the lashon in the middle of the 8th parak, or the 9th parak of the Mishnah is that when the woman screws up and marries a guy she shouldn't have married based on a dodgy get, then she's also to the first husband, also to the second husband, and all these things she gets punished on at both sides. So this is the idea of Rebbe Meir. So this case at Yasa, you can learn it both ways. For both Rebbe Meir and the Rabbanon, this works for. So Yatle Hemeno, so take it from him, from her. V'yachzor v'yatnula, and then go again and give it to her. B'fnei shnayim, before two people. V'yamer b'fnei nechtam b'fnei nechtam. And you say before her the word. So basically, you take it and you redo it, and then everything's good. Rabbi Meir mishum de lo amar b'fnei nechtam yoytze v'lad mamzer. Is Rabbi Meir really making a mamzer out of a tekanas rabbanon? You didn't do, ain't? Yeah, Rabbi Meir the time made. Rav Hamanuna mishmei de ula. So Rav Hamanuna says in ula that Rabbi Meir would say anyone who changes from the fixed form that the Chachamim formed in Gittin, Yaitze v'havlad mamzer. So there has to be whatever the Chachamim were fixed. That's the way it has to be. Now we have, for example, in our brachas, so you have a banana, and there's a matbeya of how the Chachamim fixed the brachas after the temple. Because again, during the temple, again, this talks about in the Tanya where the Beis Hamikdash was around, that all the Gashmias was soaking in spirituality. So therefore you would see, this is why Avodah Zarah was everywhere, because you would see a fork and just see the godliness in it. So therefore everything you're doing is a relationship with God, and therefore everything's a bracha. Walking down the street's a bracha. So but there was a takana of the Chachamim, dafka of the bracha, and then they have so then they have a matbeya of what the bracha is. If you have a banana and you say, God, I love you, thank you so much for this banana, that's not a bracha. And you have to redo the bracha. Obviously, if you ate the banana, I mean, what are you going to do? But you haven't the bracha, you're to the bracha until you do the matbeya of the Chacham bracha ta Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, and the whole shebang. So Rebbe Meir is saying by Gittin, if you change the matbeya of the form that the Chacham said. So here they fixed it in the Mishnah. You have to say b'fnei nechtam, and once you change from that, so therefore you are disqualified, and then that's it. But so all the way to Havlad Mamzer. So the Pashtus says we don't poskin like Rabbi Meir. That's the Pashtus. Taisvus here, take it away from her. Mekan mashma ditzarach loimer b'shas nisina b'fnei nechtav. So Taisvus is saying that it's mashma here that it's at the time that you give it to her, you have to say it. So take it back from her. So why can't? So Taisvus is kind of asking, why don't you just? So you gave it to her, and why not later just say, oh yeah, you know what? That get which I gave you. It was bifnei nechtav. It was. It's a good get. I mean, this is kind of more of a kasha on Rebbe Meir. How the hell are you making this Vlad Mamzer? He taka saw it. He just never said that he saw it when he gave it. And what the Vlad's a Mamzer? This is ridiculous. So Tosis here is saying, why don't you just say to the woman, yeah, I saw it. I didn't tell you that I saw it Lishma, but I did. And again, we're only worried about the Baal coming later and being Ma'arer. So Tosis is saying, we see from here the fact that you have to take it back from her. Why are you taking it back from her? Because at the time you give it, you have to say it. So therefore you take it back from her, and then you give it, as you said. You can't just say it while it's in her hand, because you gave it to her a few hours ago, or whatever it is. So now Tosis kind of goes on with something a bit weird. Hu adin la'acher nesina tochkatei dibur to Mahani. So he gives it to her, and then he has the tochkatei dibur window that works. Midika amor la'ayel, that he gave it to when he was pikeach. So he gave it while he was of sound mind, but he didn't have enough time to say bifnei nechtav until he became a mute. So here, the case has to be that he gave it to her and was about to say it. If we're saying here, you have to say it at the time you gave it. You can't say it later. So it's not a case where he gave it to her, and then later, the next day, he became mute and couldn't say it to her. Because here we're saying you have to take it from her and give it back to her. So therefore, how do we learn the case where he's b'keach when he gave it to her? But he has to say it when he gave it to her. So it has to be a tukadei dibur that you give it to her and you have like these 5 seconds or whatever it is in order to say it. Aval la'ach kadei dibur misveka l'ri imahani kozman she'oiskim ba'oisoi inyan elav. So in the case of kedushin, if you're oisek ba'oisoi inyan, you're talking about kedushin, you're talking about getting the wedding hall, you're talking about getting a ring, all these type of things, and then you give her the ring. And then she takes this called Oisa Inyan, and you don't have to say Hereis Mikudeshesli because you're Oisik Ba'Oisa Inyan. Now here the Sveka of the Ri is that if you're Oisik Ba'Oisa Inyan, is that called, even though you've used up your 5 seconds since you're still in the Oisik Inyan, and then you say so the guy will, I don't know, he'll give her the get. Then he'll say, I came all the way from Bavel, I came all the way from Turkey, wherever the hell he's coming from, and it's been such a trek, and, I got it, but while I was there, I saw your husband, and he wrote the get, Lishma. So is that good? Because it's Oisa Inyan, but he's taken too long. Now, Gemara here in Nadarim, so Nadarim has the Ran, not Rashi, you got Rashi over here, but the Ran, Rashi... I asked, I was doing some of this in the mirror, and I said, why don't you learn this Rashi? And the guy said, it's not Rashi. And I said, well, it says Rashi here on my book. And he said, maybe you should go ask that question at Or Sameach. But I asked someone else, and he said, well, if you read it, you can tell it's not Rashi. So anyway, it says Rashi here, and then we got the Ran here. This is Nadarim Pei Zayin as the end before the Mishnah. So Shemei Lacha Kadei Dibur. Aval B'toch Kadei Dibur Kadibur Dami. The Hilchasa says the Gemara. The Hilchasa Toch Kadei Dibur Kadibur Dami. Chutz mi Megadef v'Oivad Avodas Chochavim. So Megadef is blasphemy. Everyone will understand that you're cursing out here. Mevarech es Hashem, and that's the not Rashi. That's again they say mevarech because you don't want to say you're cursing out. Somebody who says to avodas cholam eliata to adibor lechudya chayiv, that if you say you're my God, so there and then you, I don't know, you change your mind and say no you're not my God. Too late. Mekadesh, that's a woman. Umagaresh. So everything is Dibur except for these 4 things. Two of them are Avodah Zarah, and two of them are like Kedushin and Gittin. Now, why is this a problem for us? So Toysa says that now Toysa is really getting it from the Gemara above, because how did it? What's the Gemara? It's on the top of, was it Dalid? It's the top of Hayim and Aleph. This is on the best. So what does it mean that he came and brought the get? He wasn't able to speak. So there seems to be a time afterwards. So we have the Tokhdei Dibur, Dibur Dami, not for these things. So Pnei Yeshua, the Afal Gav de Kaimalam in Nidarim, Tokhdei Dibur Dibur Dami Levar Mikadosh Megaresh. Hayinu le'inyan she'en yachol lachzer bo. That you can't be chayzer on it. So, if you say, this is my God, you can't be chayzer. When you're chayzer after Tokhdei Dibur, it's not called a chazara. If you say Hares Mikudeshesli, give her the ring, and Tokhdei Dibur, you would think, maybe you can, say, nah, forget it. I don't want to. Why not? Tokhdei Dibur Kedibur Dami. So there, chazara you can't do. Masha ein kein lefarish devarav. If you want to explain your words, vadai mahani. So saying if it's a hemshech, if the words you're saying is a hemshech of what you're doing, so that's a Tokhdei Dibur works for Gittin and Kedushin. So really you have a so again initially we'll have a kasha on Taisus. You're talking about Gittin and you Tokhdei Dibur works. Now, the way the Pnei Yeshua is explaining is that it's just the chazara when you give the get and say, no, I don't want to give you a get. So you can have, even though in Beis Din, when a Kohen wants to give a divorce, they're extra machmir. Usually they're not so helpful if you want to get divorced unless it's a clear case of gerushin. But they're not in a rush to divorce people. And then if it's a Kohen, it's even harder to get a divorce. But even then, the Kohen gives the get and then he says, wait, no. I don't want to divorce you, forget about it. You say Tokhdei Dibur, maybe they're still married. So here's what the Gemara in Nedarim is saying, is that you can't have a chazara. Now, so there's no chazara, but the guy, the shaliach, isn't trying to undo the kedushin. He's trying to do it properly, and therefore it's a hemshech of the gittin, and therefore he has the Tokhdei Dibur Kedibur Dami. Here in the Ran, so the Chilchasa, Beperach Yesh Noichlen, Lochashiv is only two of them, Chachavim and Kedushin, and it's not four, it's two over there. Velo, it doesn't say Megadef, Velo Pligi, it's not arguing over there, because Megadef is like a part of Avodah Zarah, and Megaresh is like a part of Mekadesh. Because Yitzia and Lahavia, in the Gemara it says Yoitza v'Nechnas, that she, so there's a Hekesh there. So Megadef, that if you Gadef and then you're Chayzerbo, you see the Lashon here in the Ran, you're Chayzerbo Tokhdei Dibur, Lo Havi Chazara. So that fits nicely with the Pshat of the Pnei Yeshua. You're my God, and it's Chayzerbo. There we go again, you're Chayzerbo. Yeah, it doesn't work. Lo Havi Chazara. Mekarash Megarish. She'im Kadosh Garish v'Chayzerbo Tokhdei Dibur Lo Mahani Lo Matzi Hadarbe. So here the Ran is going hard there in the Chazara, and he's really saying the same thing as Pnei Yeshua. Now, v'lo yadana ma'ishana hani umana lahula rabbanan hachi. So this is how I don't know. He started. This is like a Pesach of the Ran. I don't know what the hell the difference is. So everything is Tokhdei Dibur Kedibur Dami except for these four things. I don't know why that is. V'nira be'enai. So again, you have a Messiah of Torah, and then you have what makes sense in Svara. So there's Messiah, again, the Ran, his Messiah doesn't have anything that makes a chiluk, but he has a Svara. The Bashar Mili, the Lo Chamiri Kuli Hai. So everything else in the world is not so chomor. Everyone understands chomor. Kasha Adam oise oitam, lo b'gemor daito hu oise. So anything he does, he's not doing it with full Gemar Das. So if you buy a house, and then you sign the contract. You're not doing it with a full Gemor Das. Eladaito, what your whole Das is Shiachol Lachser Bo Tochadei Dibur. So when I'm signing this spaces, I've got a few extra seconds. So once you you press the button, it's like what in the Gmail, if you press the Gmail, there's an undo button. Why is there an undo button? Because the Das of man is that when you press send, you don't really mean to send it unless 5 seconds has passed. Then that's really when you mean to send it. So everything you do, you have it's like, so you have, what have I done? That happens for like 5 seconds. So that's like how people do things. Aval hani, but these 4 things, kaven de chamiri kuli hai, because they're so much, they're such a chomer thing. And Adam oisa otam ele b'chaksamas gemoira. So you're not going to curse out God unless you're fully sure if you want to do it. So like you're but there's the insanity plea that people do, if they do murder or whatever it is. But here, if you're gonna curse out God, you're like, are you sure you want to do it? Yeah, well, I'm sure, so well, and then you say it, and it's like, oh, what have I done? Like, no, you wouldn't have gone that far if you it's always premeditated cursing out God. Mishum hachi chazara, if you look at the dibur lo mahani. So it's like you've already done it. So obviously he's also talking about Kedushin and Gittin, that it's a chomer thing, that when you do it, then it's when you do it, that's a full haskama when you're going to marry somebody. Again, the full haskama, obviously 3 months later, you're like, what the hell have I done? I didn't know she was a gold digger. I didn't know she was a this or she was a that. That's after 3 months. They were talking here within 5 seconds you did it. And you're like, oh my gosh. Although, it's a nice skit you can pull. After she does it, start screaming under the chuppah, I take it back, what have I done? What a mistake. And then everyone in the audience goes, ah, and he's like, it's okay. Nadarim says, I can't take it back. It's a good Kedushin, don't worry about it. Now, the Quran contains Rita le Rabbeinu Moshe bar Nachman. The Perach Yesh Neichlin, Shekatav b'Shem Rabbeinu Tam, the Toch Kedei Dibur Kedibur Dami is a Takanahu, to Tikkun Rabbanan. So this would be saying that really nothing has Toch Kedei Dibur Kedibur Dami. None of that's true. With the Rabbanan, we're metaking it, and therefore, for like the Raisa things, therefore you can't, it doesn't help. Mishum Talmud Alokeach Mekach, Upegabo Rabo. Now this is a kind of strange tam that Toises brings over there. That why is because if you're signing a contract and you see your Rebbe passing, if the Rabbanan were not metaking this, then you wouldn't say hello to your Rebbe because you're too busy and it would be complete busha to everybody involved. So therefore they were metaking this so therefore you're able to say, oh, your Rebbe, Shalom Aleichem Rebbe, Umori, whatever the lotion is, and then you're able to go back to your contract, and you haven't screwed it up yet, so you have that extra time in order to do that. That's the reason. So because of that you were able. So the Rabbanan gave you that time. She gives Shalom the hashvu midasasim b'kol mili, and therefore, and then you just expand this one thing for everything. V'lo nicheli, the key based in masnin lo'ikir davar min atayir lo'olam b'kom aseh b'nadarim meile vada kadamrinan. So you have basically in Nadarim, this is the case here, where you have that your neder is oiker based on Tok de Dibur. So the Ran rejects that, but that's the idea of Tok de Dibur. Now the Stipler has a whole thing kind of saying that it's that the two diburs are kabas achas. That when you say something and you say something a second time, then it's like kabas achas. The Mishnah Berurah has some cases of where you say like a good bracha and then straight afterwards you say a bad bracha. Like what's the case if you have a banana which is a dama and you say a dama ha'etz, or brepria dama brepria eitz, or mazonos on the banana. Now the second one should chal, because as you say brepria dama berei menei mazonos, if you're gonna like repeat, I made a mistake in the first one, because the classic case, let's say, is you say, ha-kel kadosh, ha-melech ha-kadosh during the 10 days. So there you kind of wipe out the first one with your second one. So that's the standard halacha. But what happens if you're trying to wipe out the good one with the bad one? What's the case there? You have so he says that it's that the first one stays. The second one doesn't get rid of it. So if you say on the 10th day of the Omer, today's the 10th day of the Omer, the 11th day, you're Yoitza on the 10th day, and there's like a chalos that happens there. There is toch de דיבור is sugi, but there's the Pesach. So weiter. So you have a story here. Bar Hedia boy leoisi gita. So Bar Hedia is like a shaliach, and he's bringing a get. So he comes before Rebbe Achi, and he was the guy who was appointed on Gittin. So Rashi, Dekaimelan, and Kedushin, anyone who doesn't know B'tiv Gittin Kedushin, you gotta know, like, you can't just be some bacher. You gotta know your stuff and Gittin and Kedushin. Lo yeh lo esak imahem, because you'll screw it up. If you're gonna get a Masada Kedushin, he's gotta know what the hell he's doing. Not some guy. You're getting Havim Memuno Gavra Rabba Lo Oiri Hachi Naved. So he goes to him to get, because he is a Gavra Rabba, to see what to do. So Ata lekamei de Rebbe Yachad Avimona Gittin Amar leitzarech ata. So what does he say to him? You have to lamod al kol ois va'ois. You have to look at every ois that's being written in the get. You need to see that every letter in the get is lishma. Ata lekamei de Rebbe Yami v'Rebbe Yasi. Amri lei lo tzrichta. You don't have to. So you don't have to look at every ois in the get. V'kitema avid lechumra. So if you say, oh well, I'll look at every ois, and I'll say every ois is lishma lechumra, glak lechumra. Nimsa ata moitzi laz al Gittin harishonim. It comes out that you are moitzi laz on the Gittin rishonim. So basically, you're saying here that if a guy comes and he says, this get is lishma, every word on the get is lishma, and I saw every word. So now you'll be like, well, the Gittin that we had beforehand, they weren't kosher. And then you'll have like the second generation are all doing it this way, and then you'll start saying that the people, the first generation, when they brought their get, then it must have been possible. Now there's the pashtus in halacha is the moitzi laz is only on Gittin. And there's various cases where they try to change things. So here in the Piskei Teshuvos, Ibn Ezra, so he brings down the Teshuvos of Rebbe Kiveger. So he gives the explanation that Bavli, that boy Masrla Paraba Masiris, we're talking about whether Aval hacha dechtev nasan biyada. So we're talking about the kinyan of the get. How does the woman make a kinyan on the get? So it says Rebbe Kiveger that it has to be biyada. You have to not an achiye kulo biyada. So the whole thing has to be in her hand. Now the pashtus is that you do a kinyan hagbah, just like anything. You give the get to the woman and she picks it up. Here he's saying that it has to be the whole thing in her hand. So it needs the get shelo yeh miktas get yoitze miyada, so that the get can't be sticking out a little bit from her hand. The after takana it's called haget b'hagbah, even though there's a kinyan of all the get with hagbah, ein kula biyado. So therefore, since it says v'natan biyado, so therefore the Rebbe Kiveger is saying that the whole thing has to be in her hand. So therefore we have a maklokas as to whether the hagbah is enough or the whole get has to be, and you can have the get basically sticking up in her hand like a tall building, but as long as none of it sticks out, because so you have a hand like a chotzer. So whatever's in the chotzer, no matter how tall it is, will be kind of by the chotzer. But if something's sticking out of the chotzer, so that won't be kind of. So if you put the get in the hand of the woman, so therefore, Rabbi Kiveger, you're saying that the whole thing has to be in her hand. So here the Piskei Teshuvos is saying that so that the Rabbi Kiveger Sivil Ezra Sil Sarachian, because many generations were not careful with this, and therefore Yishlachush Misom Hoitzilaz Al Gittin Harishonim. So here we have a chumrah in Gittin, So let's just be machmir like Rebbe Kiveger. So here the Pesach Yeshuva say no, that's because once we start doing this like Rebbe Kiveger, so then people will say, well, I got a get and it didn't fit in my hand. It was sticking out the side of the head ball, and then we'll say, oh, well, it wasn't a good get. And once it's not a good get, then it's now. Pasha says is that this din is only brought in Gittin, and it's only brought like lachumra of minhagim or things like that, but something that's an ikar of din, so therefore they take a do it. Now I heard that the way they do it is that the base din fold over the get in a way that it fits in the hand of the woman when they give it to her. So they are holding here by the Reb Kiveger. But if people, again, most people don't know what's going on. But if you did, then you're like, oh my gosh, you're going like Rebbe Kiveger. So therefore, someone did Hagbah 100 years ago. You might see laws on them. Now here's a tshuva of Moshe Feinstein. Apparently, it's quite a famous one. So that they shekashali, people have asked me kashas. So it's kasha. It's difficult for me to write at the moment because he's not doing so well. He'll do what he can. I heard that a few people said in my name that there's a svara in the inning of small animals, bugs, that are known to be found in many types of vegetables. And it's known that I didn't say in this any hachra. So people basically were saying in the name of Moshe Feinstein, he says everything's awesome. And it's known that I never said about that they were awesome. And lehepech, my das is not to be makel with the bugs and the vegetables. Now, apparently, the people are using this as saying, "Oh, Moshe Feinstein says you don't have to check," but he's not saying he's not because he's not writing it. But come on, as you mentioned in the question, that I'm noited to be makel because you and my children, Rav Reuven, wrote to me that's possible that something that's not near a lamaisa to the eyes is not osir, and at least it's not called a beria, so therefore it's not bottle. And also, to be limud zchus. Again, limud zchus is not like a heter gomer. That's possible to be smoke on the soivrim that the bria is a bottle bekorov le'elef. If it goes to like a thousand, if it's like so small that it's bottled to 1,000, so it goes to reasons why it's mekel. The gam, like I've said to you, and also many people. That there is a chashivas, is a big chashivas in halacha leminhag ha'olam, what the people are doing, and where v'lehecha amadavar, what the people are doing, and where they're doing it. And it's also to be moitzi laz on the previous generations, and say that they were not makbid on these things. Because they didn't know from them. They didn't know about them. So we have, again, there's tons of chumras which doing with food and all this stuff today that your granny never did. And again, your granny was never going to be eating but that's meat. And there's many reasons for that. And again, if you're in the shtetl, it would have to be your great-great-granny. But if you're in the shtetl and you only eat badats, you're only eating once every 3 years. So like there's lots of reasons why we have chumras that they didn't have then or whatever it is, and well, your granny didn't have your granny only had one sink, she didn't have 2 sinks. Well, also her water wasn't very hot, so it's difficult to do bishul. But basically, there's a thing like, oh no, we know the Shulchan Aruch. Your granny was an Amma Aretz and she didn't know anything, but we know. So he's saying here that it's also so why did the previous generations not do what we're doing? Because they didn't know about any halachas, but we opened up the Shulchan Aruch and we found these halachas. So it's also to be oitzi laz al dors hakadmonim to do that. So here he's using the idea again on the it's not specifically in Gittin, but again this is more of a general klal as opposed to going on a specific halacha. But anyway, here is also a source of Moshe Feinstein basically we makel on a lot of these chumras with vegetables and check-in, and some guy told me he was talking to a mashkiach, and he was checking lettuce, and he said, do we not need to use a light? Those big light things. And he said if you want it to be kosher, don't use the light. if you don't want to eat your lettuce, then use the light, and it'll be possible. So okay, so weiter in the Gemara. So Rabbi Bar Chana, he brought a get. So half of it was written before him, and half of it was not written before him. So he comes before Rebbe Eliezer, and he says to Elazar, and he says to him, even if it wasn't written, shitas achas lishma, shov enetzarech. So you only need to see one line being written lishma, shov enetzarech. So here Toisves, perush lo ra'a ela shita rishayna de mistama saimu lishma. So here he only saw the first line being lishma, because mistam he finished it lishma. Now there's two ways to understand this Toisves. So how did you understand it? So the pashas is that once you start lishma, you finish lishma. But there's another way to read the Toisves, that shelora al ela shita rishoina. So the first line was rishoina, and then after that, stam is lishma. So when you have, so for example, it's brought in Zavachim, that if you're shechting and the first avoda is lishma, the next three avodas are stam. That's a kosher animal because that stam is lishma. So you can continue. So you can learn that since he did the first line of the get lishma, even though he only had stam das for the rest of the get, that's called lishma because you only need to have lishma for the first line, which would just be a much bigger chiddush if you learn that way. But there is a source for that in Zvachim. Ravashi Amar, afilu kav kolmos. So you just hear like the writing, the kav of the Megilta. So the tikkun of the kolmos, so the pen. So you hear the writing of the pen on the cloth. You hear it when they're fixing it lishma. So when you're hearing the pen writing on the page, so then that's enough. So you have the kolmus is the pen and the Megilta is the cloth you're writing on. So Tani Kavesi the Ravashi Hamevi Gittin B'dinas Hayam Afilu Hu B'Beis B'Bayis. So he's in that house and Sefer is in the Aliyah. So that's basically he's upstairs. Again, if you go to these Talmudic villages or whatever, you see like these huts, and then you have a higher up carved out of stone or wherever they're building it. It's just basically the upstairs. So the Sefer's upstairs. He's in the Aliyah and the Sefer's downstairs. Even if he's Nechnas Yotze Kol Hayam Kulo kosher. So if he's coming in and out all day, then it's kosher. So there, you see, you don't have to actually see the whole thing being lishma. So huba buys of a sefer baliyah ha lo ka chazi le ela lavka gon the. So he's in the house, and he's upstairs. He never saw him. Ela lavka gon the shama kav komos v'kav megilta. So has it lishma because he heard it. So Amar afilu nechnas v'yotze kol hayom kulo. It's kosher. Man, who are we referring to? Ilay mashaliach. If it's the shaliach, hashta huba bais v'sefer baliyah de lo chazile. So we have the case where here downstairs and he's upstairs the whole time. So therefore, that's good. Amar to kosher nechnas v'yotze mi boy. If he's coming in and out, we know. So Eila Sefer, the Sefer's coming in and out for sure. So Peshita, Mishum de nechnas v'yotze. Nifle slina. Just because he's coming in and out, we're going to puzzle it. Say no, lotzricha denafik l'shuk fe'ata. So we went out to the shuk and he came back, and you would think that he found somebody else and he is doing the get for this other person. Kamash Berlam. We don't choishes for that, and once he starts lishma, then we finish the shema. Now it's coming back to the end here. So before the story of Ravashi, basically this whole Gemara on this daf, we're asking all the questions of lishma, basically according to that we need. So here we have all these things. So yeah, all these Gemaras. What is it? I could have elashita achad lishma. So what? And again, going back to the Iker Maklokas, Rabba needs Lishma. And yeah, the Ketiva has to be Lishma. Rava does not need the Kesiva to be Lishma. He needs the Eidim to be Choitim Lishma, to be Choitim on it, so that the Baal can't come and Ma'arer because of Kiyim Shtarus. But he doesn't need the Lishma on the Guf of the Get. And basically the Shaliach just has to stay Bifnei Nechtam. He doesn't have to say Bifnei Nechtav except for the Gezer which we saw before. Now, why are all these Gemaras that we just looked at all these Gemaras? They're talking about we need this Lishma. And, you have one line Lishma, the whole thing's Lishma. Who cares? We don't need the get to be Lishma, according to Rava. We poskin like Rava. Here we saw that Tosfos said we poskin like Rava, even though we have all those Amoraim holding like Rabbah. So this is the Gemara here that Tosfos was saying before. All the Amoraim are going like Rabbah. So Bnei Yeshua here. Yeah, Rabbi Elazar, if you look at Tavei L'Shita Zachad Lishma, like what is he talking about? The first line in the Gemara of the get is Lishma. That's a Rava din. That's not Rabba din. Harayve dakdek mikan de halacha Rabba. The be'inyan she'shliach yamor she'nechtav Lishma. Right, so there seems to be a clear raya from this Gemara. What are you asking these questions for? If we're going like Rava, therefore the halakha is like Rabba. Otherwise, you wouldn't be asking these questions. Amnam ken lenis daiti says the Pnei Yeshua ein raya mikan. Ta'af lemai dekaimelan karava ihu gufa muded lechatchila keven shekavar tiknu shetzarach lechtov b'fnei hashaliach mishum lekaimu. So since you already need the shaliach in there, and the shaliach's already involved with looking at the get, im kain tzarach shiyata shenechtav lishma. So he also needs to know lishma. It's like a chumrah that we're putting on him because we're already involving him in doing, and looking at the writing of the get. So therefore, we'll include him also to this also lishma. Like the poskim that the Eidim Mesira gufa tzarich liot b'shas kesiva. So the poskim say that the Eidim Mesira need to be there, the shas kesiva, and to know that it was written lishma. So this is all like a chumrah. And even though the Ruiva, the Ruba Bakin, even though we said in the Gemara everyone's a Baki, therefore we don't really need it. Vilahachi lo simchan aruba lechatchila heket efshar. So where you don't need to be soimach on the rob, we're not, and therefore we're machmir. And since the shaliach is going to be there anyway, so let's just force the shaliach. It's not a big deal to force the shaliach in order to be machmir in this area that we don't need according to din. Now something that's similar, I think is similar. You have by there's a set like in the Shulchan Aruch when you're checking chickens, there's a couple of things you have to check, and you don't have to check the other stuff. Now, there's some in America. There's some health and safety thing that you're not supposed to eat chickens that have some type of infection of their innards. So after you shecht the chicken. So they check the chicken, and there's like a conveyor belt, and they put the bits of chicken on hooks or something, and it comes down the conveyor belt, and they have to take, I don't know, the stomach out or something, whatever they're doing to check the kashrus of the chickens. But in order for not for kashrus ideas, but for FDA stuff, they also have to take out the intestines so it can be inspected externally. So they hang out the intestines. So there, Moshe Feinstein says that since it's easy, even though you don't have to check the intestines for kashrus, since they're there anyway and it's easy to check, so you should check the intestines. So we have like an extra chumrah of the checking of the intestines for the chickens, even though it's not why, because you have to take them out for like a different reason anyway. So therefore, just do this for this reason, and so you like expand, this chumrah because it's free and easy, or it may not be free, but at least it's easier than. If you have to take out the innards specifically to check it, you don't need to do that. But you take out the innards anyway, so therefore just be machmir and check it. So to here when it comes to the get, so now Rava needs lishma also, but that's like midin chumrah because you're doing the other stuff anyway. So he'll hishpate the chumrah, but me'ikar din you don't need it. But there according to the Pnei Yeshua, don't be samech on the roiv because lechatchila you don't have to. As here's the Chochmah Shloima on the Shulchan Aruch. Filu lo katav elishit zachad lishma. So again, the Shulchan Aruch is coming out like it's going like Rabbah. So nearby now haravid. So this is it's a lach like Rava. If you said ein roy klal because it's okay that Rava lo chaysh le'inin lishma you davka bestam. So Rava doesn't care about lishma. It's only stam. Aval ati bal uma'arer shenechtav shelo lishma. Then he's moide beget posel. So Rava is moided that they get as possible because the error is an error. Kamor Rabba b'mazuyev shaloch hashinin ve'imkein ma'arer tzarech kiyum. So for this ma'arer, then you need the kiyum. Ach zeh davke im hashaliach lo amar lishma b'shasha amar b'fnei nechtav. But if he said it lishma nachi demina din ein tzarech loymar klal. So if he did say lishma, even though min din he didn't need to say it at all. Mikom im amar mahani. So since he did say it, it would help. So therefore, again, we're being machmer here on the shaliach to make him bring it, because we're worried here afterwards that it will stop the bal if the shaliach comes and he says, according to Rava now, if the shaliach comes and says that I saw it written lishma. Then if the Baal comes afterwards and is ma'arer and says it wasn't written lishma, he's not going to be believed, even if you have the edim that are choitim. So we also have that since the Rava wants to stop the error of the Baal, so too you may as well say it. You can even machayev the shaliach to say it, but it's not meyakev. But if he does say it, then it helps that if the Baal comes and says that it's that it is lo lishma, so then the Baal is believed as an error, and therefore you have to makayim the shemanos of the get somehow. So therefore, we'll encourage the shaliach to say it, and even though Shulchan Aruch says that he has to say it, it's not, it doesn't miyakev b'di'eved, but even though Shulchan Aruch says to do it, it's like a lechatchila good thing to do.